live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hey, hi there. How you doing? It's Thursday, the 21st of January, 2016. I had to laugh. I mean, this story coming out of Washington, D.C. today about how they had an inch of snow last night, and it paralyzed the city. Paralyzed the city. 1 inch. They're due for, what is it, almost 2 feet tomorrow. What? 1 inch. Jeez. It reminds us that Washington is a southern city. You know, I'm rereading Gore Vidal's wonderful novel, Lincoln, which is a great way to get history, because the history is just all through the book. He just fictionalizes, conversations, and it's simply wonderful. But yeah, Washington is a malarial swamp. It's a southern city. And when that Civil War was joined, the fear was that Washington would be taken immediately because it was essentially in the Confederacy. Interesting that it never did fall, given the extraordinary incompetence of the Union Army for the first 2 years of the war. Well, I guess we're going to be on the tail end of that. I'm thinking the way the news works now, if a storm is coming, the coverage starts like 3 days, 4 days before, gets people all riled up before the event. And then, of course, if the event is not as huge as the media seem to suggest it would be, everybody gets furious and angry. On the other hand, governments don't have a lot of wiggle room anymore for being unready because they are forewarned. Okay. So I wish I could tell you I had a lot of happy stuff to talk about today, but I don't. One of the stories that I just can't get out of my head, and the more I know of it, the more horrified I am, is the Flint story. The president said it all. He said, if I were a father in Flint, Michigan, I would be beside myself. Your children have been drinking poison for a year and a half. I mean, in absolute numbers, they only know that about 100 children have, at this point, they know 100 kids, definitely, lead poisoned. And lead poisoning is not reversible. In other words, these children's lives have been taken from them in a way. The life they would have lived with an unpoisoned brain. The doctor, a pediatrician, a 36-year-old woman in Flint, is the one who first started screaming about it. And, of course, was dismissed by all of the authorities. She desperately tried to get their attention. And here's what she said. What's so damning about lead poisoning? It's forever. It drops your IQ. It causes behavioral problems. It has been directly linked to violence. In 5 years, we're going to see, here's what she says, in 5 years, we're going to see more kids who need early education and special education. In 10 years, we're going to see more kids with behavioral problems. In 15 years, we're going to have more kids with criminal justice issues. They've destroyed these children's lives to save some money. She and some of her colleagues have established a fund called the Flint Child Health and Development Fund. It's a charity. They're collecting donations for the long-term needs of the children of Flint. She says we don't see the illness that lead causes right now. The consequences of it will unfold over the entire lifetime of these children. Lead is an irreversible neurotoxin with a lifelong, multi-generational impact. And we have just had an entire population exposed to it. This whole thing destroyed the entire plumbing system of Flint, by the way. Its water is still unsafe to drink, no matter where it's from, if it's going through those pipes. This poor doctor tried desperately to get the attention of state officials. They just kept insisting the water is safe. They just kept, she was like an annoying gnat. She first reported this in September of 2014. Imagine you're living in Flint. And you have children, and are they drinking the water, bathing in the water? You've been cooking with the water. As soon as she realized what was going on, she called a press conference, and she says, a doctor would not usually share research at a press conference. You would publish the findings. She said, well, I'm not going to have time to publish findings. I needed to alert people. I had an ethical, moral responsibility to alert our community about this crisis. She says when pediatricians hear about lead anywhere in a child's environment, we freak out. So how do you hold government accountable for this kind of a thing? This is malfeasance of a type that is like murder. These children have been robbed of what their lives would have been. And all to save some money. The governor, as I told you yesterday, was never in government before. He's an accountant. Bottom line, Republican, looking at the numbers, while children are being poisoned. Didn't see those, looking at the numbers. You know that they turned down this. Somebody said, well, we could add this stuff to their water, which will keep, I guess, the corrosive something. That would have helped it, would have kept the lead maybe where it belonged. It kept it from leaching into the. No, it was going to cost $100 a day, and that was, I'm sorry, too much. And then, of course, the knowledge that this would not have happened to an affluent community. This would not happen if the people of Flint, Michigan were Republican voters or were lighter of hue. If I were a mother in Flint, I wouldn't know what, I would be in mourning. I would be murderously angry. Unbelievable. And did you see that the former head of FEMA, Mr. Brown, remember, you're doing a good job, Brownie, he has come out and said he's very upset about people suggesting that Flint is like Katrina. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike from D.C.
Hi.
This is what capitalists don't understand, is that not everything has to make a profit. There has to be some things in our culture for the public good. We used to be called public utilities, but public utilities is even an anomaly because even they make money. So some things just have to be for the public good.
Yes.
Public health.
Exactly right. It doesn't mean you cannot manage them well. You don't want to waste money. But yes, for the public health. But these kind of bean-counting, number-crunching people who that supersedes everything to them.
It's the Republican motto. I got mine, so screw you.
Yeah.
But we're all in the same soup. You know what I mean? Everybody's drinking that water.
What do you mean?
If the soup is polluted that we're all drinking or all eating, then you're polluting yourself. If you're polluting the environment to save $1, you're polluting yourself, your kids, your environment. It just makes no sense to me.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is, okay, so that brings us to the evidence now that global climate change is, everything that the scientists warned is clearly now dropping into place, right? We're destroying our planet, our environment. Same kind of a thing. Look at
Happily,
save
$100.
Yeah, look at the Republicans' response to climate change. Denial. Wasn't happening. Isn't happening. Are any of them daring to say that? anymore?
To save $100, that's the thing that gets me. It isn't just you're denying it because you're stupid and you can't read. It's to save $100.
Yeah.
To save a job of coal miners who, in my public health mind, shouldn't be in a coal mine destroying their lungs.
Because we're addicted to this dirty, nasty fossil fuel.
Yeah.
When there are alternatives, but you can't make as much money on them. And the oil and gas industry, they funded all of this bogus research that the Republicans and the conservative think tanks glommed onto to hoodwink an awful lot of people for a long time that climate change or global warming was some kind of a plot.
We live in a culture that thinks we can exploit people, coal miners, waiters, waitresses, fruit pickers, and that there won't be any ramifications to exploiting those people.
Well, I would say a lot of people do get away with that. They live their lives in their little bubbles, and they don't,
But culturally, what about the kids who just drank lead? Maybe one of them had the cure for cancer. Maybe one of them had a play written in them that would have changed people's lives. Guess what? We'll never know, because culturally we want to save $100.
You know, this is an awful thing to say, but if instead of just being poisoned for the rest of their lives, and we'll have to sit and watch what the impact is on each individual child, if they had been poisoned to the extent where they drop dead immediately and you could see dead children piling up, people would respond more, right? This is very invisible still.
Dead black children?
They're black and they're white. It is a majority black city, but there's plenty of white folks there too. Did you see, one of the things I couldn't believe, did you see that one of those people that was just released from Iran, one of the Americans that was let out, who'd been imprisoned, who was let out in this prisoner swap, he's from Flint, Michigan. And I'm thinking, oh, well, fine, you're free. Now go home and get poisoned. I mean, he might want to say, hey, could I get back to Iran? At least I could drink the water.
Right. At least when I was a prisoner, I was safe.
Yeah.
And it gets back to our cultural values. What do we value? We value money more than anything.
Yeah. We worship mammon. We do.
More than anything. More than coal miners' lungs. More than kids without lead. More than CDC that functions properly to prevent epidemics. Money means more to our culture than anything. And I'm ashamed of that.
Yeah, I am too. Great values. Great values. I just, wow. Unbelievable. I'm sort of So you're in D.C. So how bad was it yesterday?
Oh, my God. I had rehearsal last night. And I live 12 miles away from the theater.
So it took you 10 hours?
I was done at 9 o'clock. Yeah. There was a quarter of an inch on the ground. It took me an hour and 45 minutes to go 12 miles.
And what are they forecasting for you guys?
8 to 24 inches tomorrow. Or Saturday, into Saturday.
Is a roll of toilet paper to be found on a shelf in D.C. at the moment?
No, you can't get bread. A friend of mine went to the grocery store last night and said there's not a fresh vegetable to be found or a loaf of bread anywhere.
God.
And the people, living in Pittsburgh, you learn to drive. Don't stop at a stop sign and keep going. If you stop, it only is going to make you skid. You learn all these things. Turn into the curve. Well, here they know none of those rules.
Yeah.
So they see snow and they think ice rink, and they panic and they start braking, and then everybody starts braking, and then you're all spinning. It's I know I was trying not to be mad at these people. It was literally bumper to bumper, and people had their hazard lights on.
Oh.
Why?
You're not going
Why
anywhere.
right.
Right. None of us are going anywhere.
They don't know how to drive in the snow, and that's not my saying, oh, kids today, right? It's literally, they do not know how to drive in the snow. And it was a quarter of an inch, a dusting on the road.
Jeez.
So count your blessings.
Okay, I will. And good luck to you. I hope you don't starve to death there
Okay.
when Snowmageddon comes. Bye. Appreciate it.
Snowmageddon 2.
Yeah, right. Goodbye. Margie points something out. This bean counter mentality that results in this horror. She says, so they're so short-sighted. Look what's going to happen to the bean counters now. This is going to cost them billions upon billions upon billions of dollars to fix. And no amount of money. It's not like you can give money to the families of these children. No amount of money can do anything. They're going to have to rebuild the entire water system of this city because they were trying to save some money. I believe Ben Franklin had a little adage. Penny wise, pound foolish. Incredible. Oh, okay. Speaking of that, John G. Watson of Upper St. Clair wrote a letter to the Post-Gazette today. And I just want to say, Mr. Watson, you know, God bless you. And my mother would be right there with you. She feels the same way. Here in part is what he said. I am watching the Republican presidential debate. I am 91 years old. For the first time in my life, I am ashamed of my country. If the people I am looking at are the best we can find to become president of the United States, we are truly in deep trouble. And then I just don't want to, I will read everything he said. He says, these people happen to be Republicans, but the Democrats have nothing better to offer. So here he is, 91 years old. Imagine, member of the greatest generation. I don't. But a guy who's seen the Depression, the World War II, all of it, been through all of it, the Cold War, blah, 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 and for the first time in my life, I am ashamed of my country. And then he says this, who am I to blame? I have to point the finger at myself and all those of my generation who have allowed this to happen. I don't know why he just says his generation. How about your children's generation and your grandchildren's generation? Because that, will bring in the rest of us. I have never missed an opportunity to vote, and most of my colleagues can make the same claim. So voting is not the sole solution. Although, given the rates of voting, Mr. Watson, it's a huge part of the problem. These people have been given their power and status by interest groups with selfish, self-serving motives. And here's his. It's a 92-year-old man who had to live long enough to have to write this letter. I feel for him, and I'm sorry too. I and others like me have allowed this to happen. For this, I apologize to my children and grandchildren. I have left them a country that does little to make their lives a joy and a future that offers little hope for enjoying the fruits of their labors. What is my plan to correct the mess I have created? I am ashamed to say that I don't have one. I don't have a possible solution. I created a mess. I am asking others to help me and return this country to sanity. It made me want to cry when I read it. You live that long, and all you feel like is that you need to apologize. And you feel shame. I just want to say, God bless you, Mr. Watson of Upper St. Clair, for feeling shame. Would that more Americans did, and would that more did what you did, which is not point the finger out, but point it at yourself. And if we all did that, we'd come together and do something. But our reaction generally is that, and a lot of talking. The letter touched me. Henry writes, Lynn, I don't understand how the water from the Flint River can corrode the lead pipes when the water from the Detroit water system does not. Because the water in the Flint River was like, the Flint River is a sewer. Somewhere I read an explanation, but I'm not good at science, so I did read an explanation. It's so corrosive. It's so corrosive, the pipes couldn't handle it. It was... If it's so corrosive, it's like eating away at the pipes. What's it doing to a human being who's ingesting it? I mean, I know it's hard to get your head around. The water from Detroit is from Lake Huron. Lake Huron, apparently, is relatively pure water. In as much as there's anything like that we haven't befouled. But the Flint River was a river running through an industrial American city, like, ours. And those are dumping grounds. It was a dumping ground. It was a sewer. Here, said the state of Michigan to the poor people of Flint. Drink from this sewer. It'll save us money. The population of Flint, Michigan, Henry writes, is about 100,000. The only option here is to relocate these people at the expense of Flint, the state of Michigan. Flint shouldn't have any expense here. They were in receivership. The city had a government that the governor replaced. The state knocked their government. The people in a referendum said, we don't want this, we don't want it. It didn't matter. This is a story of such malfeasance and immorality. Okay. So let me give you the one good news story. Maybe you've seen this. I was ranting a few weeks ago, maybe 3, 4, about this Hollywood mogul who lives atop the Fairmont Hotel, has a penthouse, part owner of the Steelers. I'm sure he's got homes in California, and he's got the penthouse here, but he needed another house, of course. I mean, he's got children, and you need room. And so he bought this house in Edgeworth. And this is a 111-year-old beautiful home with historic value. It doesn't have a historic designation, but he bought it, and right after the sale, the close, he applied to the city for whatever permit you need to destroy it. It's just going to knock it down. And all hell broke loose. People were saying, oh, my God, you can't. Oh, dear. Oh, Lord. He had every right to do it. There was nothing protecting that house. And I just want to say that Thomas Tull, that is his name, I think he, what is he, the head of Legendary Pictures, something. He's a biggie. He heard the hue and cry, and he said, okay. All right, okay. I understand. I will not tear this down. But it's not really the house I wanted. I wanted this land and the view and this and that. So I will, at my expense, take this house and I'm going to move it a little bit over onto another part of the property and I'll use it as a guest house. But it wasn't quite a house that was fit for my young family. He wants a modern house. Ah, the rich. Well, at least he's rich enough to do that. So thank you, Mr. Tull. How about instead of moving that house, how about give it to that fund that's set up for the health of the children of poisoned children of Flint? I guess they got so much money they can do whatever. Here's Laura writing from Michigan. It is a tragedy. However, the blame goes around to more than our governor. I'm sure you know a lot more about this, Laura, than I do. It started many years ago when the auto companies dumped all their crap right into the Flint River. Right. It's like steel mills dumped all their stuff into the Mon and mostly the Mon and Allegheny. Flint got their water from the Detroit water system, and Detroit's infrastructure is shot. They decided to charge, I guess Detroit did, decided to charge the suburbs, I guess like Flint, higher rates for water to offset the cost and to try to improve their system. Flint did not want to pay the increase and thought that this would save money. However, the guy who took over from the duly elected mayor, the emergency manager of Flint was not from Flint and probably never bothered to check that the Flint River was an open sewer, huh? Well, I mean, come on, you can't, okay. And probably never bothered to check, and of course no one listens to the population or the doctors. Detroit was bankrupt, population falling, corrupt public officials, and Flint was in the same boat with the auto industry leaving and abandoning the city. The population is 56% black, 37% white, and a smattering of other. What I don't understand is common sense. Of course, we know politicians have none, but common sense would tell anyone not to use the river water when it was toxic for years. They needed to save money because they were bankrupt, but they went about it in the wrong way. Of course, what is the way to stop the failure of these cities? Don't be too hard on our governor. He has actually done some good for our state. This will be a black eye, but then Michigan has had several in the past decade, Detroit the biggest one. I may have gotten a bit jumbled on this. It's a hot topic around here, I can imagine. No, I understand. The governor himself did not sign off on every one of these things. But the very people around him, including his chief of staff, his aide, were just constantly just batting away all of these concerns. And you know the old phrase, the buck stops here? I'm sorry, Rick Snyder, the buck stops here. He can apologize till he's blue in the face. But he has the lives of these children on him. You know, if this was Japan, he'd commit suicide. Laura, ask my brother. She's my brother's secretary. Ask my brother if my brother wouldn't say that would be the honorable thing to do. But we don't have a culture that values honor. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. Go ahead.
do you want to know what the topic is?
What? We're talking about Flint, Michigan.
Okay. Well, I'm on a different subject, then I'll call back
Okay,
later.
thank you very much. What the fuck? Okay, Roger writes. After I got out of the corporate world, I kept in touch with my former colleagues. Shortly after I left the company, management from the clouds decided the office space that our Cranberry office was occupying had too much square footage for the number of employees in the office. So management from the clouds renegotiated the lease with the landlord, cutting the space in half. One of the many problems, the half they had to squeeze into didn't have bathrooms. While they renegotiated a new lease, management from the clouds rented porta-johns that were placed in the parking lot. Bathroom breaks shortened considerably during that winter. Sales staff didn't invite any customers to the office either. Oh, my God. God almighty. Okay. Since we're dumping on the powerful, there's a piece in the Post-Gazette today that is a reprint from another publication, but it's about how, St. Louis has a football team, the St. Louis Rams, had. They're being moved to L.A., and it's pointed out in this that the taxpayers of St. Louis and the taxpayers of Missouri paid the entire $280 million cost of constructing a wonderful dome stadium for the St. Louis Rams when they threatened to leave in 1995. There was a football stadium there. Nah, not good. So, and understand that the owner of the Rams, obviously, is an excessively rich man. But the taxpayers paid, and, we know what we're talking about. We've paid too. Built him a new playground for his football team so that they would stay. Please stay. And oh, look, it worked. For, about 20 years. So $280 million for 20 years. And guess what? When he started threatening to leave again, government officials tried to persuade the team to stay with the promise of building them another new stadium for $500 million this time. This is our government. This is state and city. This is government and the rich. This is the oligarchy we live in, folks. Can you imagine? 20 years after they built the one, they're willing to and build him a bigger and even better one. Just please stay. And the politicians, what they always say when they ask us to foot the bill for billionaires, they always say it's because it will create jobs and help the economy. And every single study that has been done trying to prove that assurance has shown it's bullshit. The article actually points out that here, right over there on the now North Shore, the median household income in Allegheny County, after we spent money for the Steelers' new stadium, declined. It didn't go up. We weren't helped. The people of Allegheny County weren't helped. The Rooneys were. Or the Indianapolis hapless taxpayers. They built the most expensive stadium in Lucas Oil Stadium, $619 million that taxpayers. Think of what that would do for schools, for infrastructure. $619 million. It'll spur the economy. It's money well spent. You got to look further down the road. Okay, let's look further down the road. They built that for this despicable Irsay, his name is, the gazillionaire owner of the Colts. And since the construction of that palace for his football team, the poverty rate in that county skyrocketed from 12% to 21%. Oh, yeah, that's real economic. That's an economic shot in the arm. We live in a country that is polluted and corrupted. Let's acknowledge that. We say we have no money for schools. We have no money to help the poor, to build affordable housing. We never can have the money. We can't find it. It's not available. But we can find huge stashes of money to give to billionaires. Takes us back to my 91-year-old's letter in Upper St. Clair. We should be ashamed, all of us, for allowing this. We should be ashamed. You wonder why people are angry. You wonder why Bernie Sanders is looking much stronger than anyone in their... You know, when he announced, it was like a joke. Sort of like when Trump announced. They were both considered jokes. They're not jokes anymore, either of them. Another piece on the same page says that, you know, in Europe, when Europeans look at us flipping out about Bernie Sanders and his socialism, it says right here, in Europe, Bernie Sanders would be considered a center right on their political spectrum. And in fact, he'd be supported by what Europeans call conservatives. It's true. That's how far off the grid we are. Hey. Okay. Oh, there was this sweet story. I just wanted to, something was suggested to me. There was this sweet story, and you know that column that we do, Random Acts of Kindness, people write in and say, oh, I fell down, and a lot of people came and helped me up and stuff like that. I lost my purse, and it was a nice young man. Rang my doorbell 2 hours later. He traveled 700 miles on bended knee to get it to me. There was a much longer one today, and it's written by a man who he wanted to praise the Pittsburgh Symphony because he asked them a favor, which he didn't think for a minute they do, but his mother, old mother, who'd been going to the symphony forever, now couldn't handle the crowds and she so missed it. And he had asked, is it possible for me to bring her to like a rehearsal so she could just sit in an empty, you know, and not have to deal with the crowds? And he thought for sure they were going to say, oh, they said yes. And they treated her like a queen. It's a very sweet story. But in the story, he describes his mother thusly. He says that his mother, he said, my mother is 101 3/4 years old. And that made me laugh. And I realized, if you ask a little kid, how old are you? They'll say 7.5, right? Or they'll say 5, and they don't have to do 3/4, but I'll be 6. They're always trying to up it. And we do it again when we get to people who are late in life. That's so cute. Caller. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Carolina Roten, and I'm the producer of the public access series that you did a program for, and I wanted to let you know that the interview you did with Marian Damick will be shown every Monday night at 9 p.m. During the month of February.
On where will it be available?
Comcast Channel 21.
Okay, and you're saying it'll be on at 9 p.m.
every Monday.
On Mondays.
And it's also on Verizon Fios Channel 47.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for that information. I appreciate it.
I just emailed you the article about it, and I was talking to someone at the American Civil Liberties Union right before I called you, so I apologize I called at the wrong time.
Okay. Hey, Carlina, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Every Monday during February, 9 p.m., Comcast 21 and Verizon Fios 47.
Okay, thanks a million. Bye-bye. This is a sit-down or oral history kind of interview I did with this wonderful woman, Marian Damick, who herself is 90 plus something. I don't know exactly. 90. Well, actually, I maybe do know. 90 and about a half. And she lives in the house she was born in. And she was the face of the ACLU here in Pittsburgh for decades. And what a feisty lady she is to this day. She wrote a wonderful letter to the editor not too long ago decrying the gentrification of East Liberty. I mean, she's always right on. She's so engaged. You can rarely find her. We had trouble setting this interview up because she's so busy. She's out delivering things to nursing homes. She picks up flowers from, she says, someone will do an event and there's beautiful flowers and then they just throw them out. That bothers someone like Marian. So she'll go and she collects all the flowers and she brings them to people who they brighten their lives. What an amazing woman. Marian Damick. So check that out. What else? I just want to make sure I'm getting everyone. Laura again writes about the stadium. Sounds like Michigan, too. Taxpayers have been stuck with Pontiac Silverdome and several venues in Detroit. Once again, no common sense. That's one. It's not that it's common sense. It's corruption. It's the government they're beholden to the rich, and the rich, this is one of the things Donald Trump is being very clear about to us Americans. Saying, hey, when you're rich like me, you give money to the politicians so that they'll do what you want them to do. Why would I give money if they weren't going to do what do you think I'm giving money for? He's telling us how it works. Hey, I'm talking about him like he's a regular guy now. You know why? Because I'm beginning to think he's going to get the nomination. Did you see what Bob Dole said today? I thought I had it here. I don't. Yesterday? Bob Dole, former Republican candidate for president, warned Republicans be much better to have Donald Trump than Ted Cruz. Do you believe it? Robert Dole is saying, I'd take Trump in a minute over Ted Cruz. And he says the same thing about Cruz. He says Cruz is an extremist, Cruz is dishonest, and Cruz is vile. He didn't say vile, but he says nobody on earth likes him. And he said, Dole said, you elect a president like that, he can't work with anybody. He said, at least Donald Trump know he is a negotiator. He does know how to make deals. That means he could actually maybe be a president. Ted Cruz could not. I can't believe it's gotten to this point. I cannot believe it. And you see Sarah Palin taking her son's arrest for domestic battery and gun violations and trying to blame Obama. Did you see that? That's a twist that only her twisted mind could come up with. She's saying he has PTSD and blah, 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 and we don't have... Fine. The war he volunteered to go fight was started by George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Don Rumsfeld. And last time I looked, they ain't Barack Obama. He's been trying to clean up the mess. I thought Republicans were always talking about personal responsibility. Her son is, arrested, and she's pointing fingers at the president. Excuse me. Oh, dear. Okay, what else we got? I didn't even talk about that. They think there's a ninth planet out there, way past Pluto, that used to be a planet, but now has been, demoted. Way past. And they've never seen it. No one knows exactly where it is. But they think there's a ninth planet. And listen, here's what the report said. I love this. I never heard this word used this way. Scientists have inferred that the planet has to be there because they've discovered dwarf planets and other smaller, by small, I'm sure they mean gargantuan to us, in the outer solar system that have orbits that appear to be influenced by the gravity of a huge planet. They see all these little things and they think, what? That can't be happening unless there's a planet that's this huge, twice the size of the Earth, out there, whose gravitational pull is creating these orbits. Anyway, they called this planet Planet 9, but no one's ever seen it or located it, and now the race is on to find Planet 9. But the report called this hidden planet a massive perturber. And I looked at it, I thought, perturber? I looked it up. It's exactly what you think it is. If you perturb somebody, what do? You confuse them, right? Or yeah, I'm perturbed. When you're perturbed, you're bothered, confused, yeah, whatever, disturbed. So they call this thing they know is there but they cannot find a perturber. Causes me to be perturbed. A massive perturber. The reason you can't see it is it's got to be so far out on the outer reaches of our solar system that it doesn't reflect enough sunlight, because the sun is so far from it, does not reflect enough sunlight for us to see it, to make it visible to us. The guys who come up with this, they looked into it because somebody else had suggested it, and they thought it was the craziest, stupidest thing they ever heard. So they went in to do their research to totally debunk this nonsense that somebody else was suggesting. And instead, they said, oh my God, it's got to be out there. So that's pretty cool. Let me catch up on emails here. Nancy says, when you talk about public dollars, We did it for the airport, too. We built that huge, wondrous airport for U.S. Air. Remember? And then he picked up and walked. And now that big, beautiful airport is mostly empty. Why do we keep doing it? Because they own our governments. Because money, which we were Mike from when we were talking about Flint, we worship money. Money is above everything. Money is it. Money speaks. Money talks. Money has power. Money is the decider, and the people who have none, we the people, we can scream till we're blue in the face. It doesn't count. You saw this thing that researchers came up with. Okay, let's take 62 people. I can envision 62 people, can't you? Yeah, okay, I got them. 62 people. That's not a huge crowd. It's been figured out that 62 people own or hold as much of the world's wealth as the 3.5 billion people at the bottom. Think about that. 62 people. 3.5 billion. Never in the history of humanity has there been such. Even when there were kings in a feudal system, even when there are despicable dictatorships, there's never been that level of disparity, of access to the wealth of this planet. Oh my God. I mean, you read this stuff and you can't even, usually you can't get your head around it. I know I cannot, in my head, conjure 3.5 billion. I can't. But imagine each one of those, that's a human being. And I mean, it would stretch into blah, 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 blah. If they were to hold hands, they probably can go out to Planet 9 and back again. That's how many. And then they got the same amount of money to live their lives as 62 people in this world. Not even some cinematic bad guy could come up with that level of inequality. I mean, it's beyond belief. It is. It's dystopian. Oh, just saying. Okay, and talk about being perturbed. Perturbed has sort of an anger thing with it for me. Disquieting. Okay. Perturber. A massive perturber. I told you the other day that Denmark, a European country that I used to think was full of wonderful folks, because they really made an effort to save their Jews when the Nazis came calling for them, when all the others just handed them over. Here's the latest out of Denmark. I told you that they've told any refugees trying to come there, all right, fine, come, but we're going to confiscate all your valuables to pay for what we're going to have to, for the costs of having to take you in. You're going to have to impoverish yourself And now a Danish town in central Denmark has voted that it will be required that all daycare centers and kindergartens serve pork to the children. Now, you gotta be a son of a bitch to come up with that. According to the people who passed this lovely measure, it was essential to help preserve the Danish national identity. You know, there's towns in France that have done the same thing. One town, in its schools, if they had pork on the menu, they would offer like fish for Muslim or Jewish students who couldn't eat it, and they took the fish away. Oh, God. All right. I guess that's it. I'm all done for today. I thank you very much. Wish you well. And I'm going to try to be back tomorrow. I have to tell you, I'm not feeling great. And if I'm not back tomorrow, it's because I decided to, I don't know, take care of myself more or something. Okay? Thank you. Toodle.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.